I'm better than them, but they won anyway. This is the cope heard around the world. Humans don't like losing.
No shit.
But what we hate even more than losing is accepting that some people are better than us.
No shit.
So we'll usually tend to do this unfortunate psychological strategy of invalidating skills. I might not be able to beat this guy in a 1v1, but that's just because he's a defensive player and he can run faster than me. I can make more free throws, I'm still the better basketball player. And of course, wouldn't you know it, this attitude is quite common in the loving, supporting community of first-person shooters. I remember back to one specific day when me and my friend were playing Splitgate back when it was popular. My friend was repeatedly complaining about people killing him with the shotgun. He complained that not only does the shotgun one-shot you, but it has a very forgiving spread, requiring it to take very little skill to use. Which would be a very valid complaint to have, but there is one small issue. We were playing a shotgun-only game mode. Yeah, the shotgun might not take great aim skill to use, but it's the same aim skill for you and them. Despite this, he was still convinced that the people who were killing him had no skill. But it wasn't as if the winners of fights were completely random. I was consistently top scoring, and he was consistently bottom scoring. If it was random, there would be no consistency. I was able to do so much better than him because I've played a lot of really stupid stealth-based characters in video games. So this made me much better at positioning and stealth. But to my friend at the moment, this wasn't really a skill that mattered, one that counted. He was better at aiming than me, so the fact that there was a game mode where I could do better than him kind of upset him. No aim, no brain. In the galaxy of invalidating skills in FPS, aim stands out as the one thing you can't invalidate. It makes sense when you think about it. It's a first-person shooter. It's the thing you do in the game. If you don't like aiming, why aren't you playing a different genre? It's also a considerably easier skill to quantify. But do you ever notice how it sometimes feels like people would rather be playing competitive aim trainer? You die to a 2v1 because you have no concept of team play? Doesn't matter, I'm still better. You die to an enemy you don't see because you're not paying attention. Doesn't matter, I'm still better. You die to a grenade you completely ignore. Doesn't matter, I'm still better. As long as people are willing to believe that they're better at aiming than their opponent, they will write off all their deaths as cheap kills that didn't really matter. Aim truly is king. And if you look at the most hated weapons in first-person shooters, shotguns, SMGs, flamethrowers, rocket launchers, they're all weapons perceived as having low aim skill. They are so hated, in fact, that it is usually considered a failure on the developer's part if they're even usable at high-level play. Which is even worse, because it means in most games, they're hated despite being objectively terrible. So if I've taught you anything in the last few minutes, it's this. People hate blaming themselves for losing, and aim is king. Because of this, the most hated option in any given game is the one that requires the least aim skill. So now, I ask you this. If all of this is true, and I know it is, why is Sniper the most hated class in Team Fortress 2? Sniper is by far the most hated class in the entirety of TF2, and it really isn't even close. The hate other classes get has been bad before, but never as bad as Sniper. I mean, modern Sniper literally has videos dedicated to why he himself is a bad addition to the game. But this is strange, right? Sniper is a class that takes a lot of aim skill. I mean, sure, a lot of games have hated sniper rifles, but the overwhelming pattern of hated sniper rifles is that they can one-shot you whether they hit you in the head or not. So more often than not, people will say they take less aim skill. This is not the case with Sniper, who actually has a bigger downside for missing a headshot than most snipers in video games. Usually, crits will do 1.5 or 2 times damage. In TF2, they do 3 times damage. And since snipers in basically every video game are balanced around getting headshots, not body shots, this means Sniper is very punishing if you're not good at aiming. In fact, he probably has the highest skill floor of any class in Team Fortress 2. It's very hard to invalidate the skills of a sniper player that killed you. Because of this, it's very unusual that Sniper is the most hated class in Team Fortress 2. It'd make much more sense for the most hated class to be something like Pyro. And in fact, it was for a long time. It might be hard for a lot of new-gen TF2 players to picture how hated Pyro used to be, but it was bad. And he fits the bill basically perfectly. And I play a lot of Pyro, but I'm not gonna defend this thing as being hard to aim with. An amoeba could use it. The usual pattern of skill invalidation fit perfectly, but Pyro's not the most hated anymore. So what changed exactly? Well, the rise of sniper hate definitely helped take a lot of the heat off Pyro, that's for sure. But for me, the thing that helped fix Pyro's image the most was that he got better. Now this seems really counterintuitive. Wouldn't making a class better make them more hated? I mean, people were already saying he's overpowered. Wouldn't this have just added gas to the fire?
There I am, Gary, there I am!
But this actually makes a lot of sense if you start thinking about it. You see, Pyro used to be really bad. This is especially apparent if you look at his developer commentary.
The Pyro is designed to be the best short-range combat class, aimed at encouraging players to adopt an ambush style of play. To achieve this, we made the Pyro vulnerable in the open, which forces players to seek out enclosed areas and doorways. To add to the Pyro's short-range lethality, we made the flamethrower effects visually noisy, which helps disorient opponents long enough for the flames to finish them off.
Yeah, Valve, balancing a class around assuming their opponents are gonna shit their pants and cry out of confusion every time they get into an interaction is definitely a great idea. Pyro wasn't just bad, he was bashing your head against a rock bad. His flamethrower was considered worse than the shotgun. Because of this, for a while, once players got to a certain proficiency with aiming, Pyro just became obsolete.
I don't want to play with you anymore.
Basically, combo Pyro was the only way you could play Pyro, and at the end of the day, a combo is just doing what other classes do, but with more work. Alright, so here's what you gotta do. First, you need to puff them with the flames of the flamethrower. Then you need to blast them into the air with the air blast, and then you switch to the flare gun, and if you get a perfect shot, a direct hit, you'll do a whopping 90 damage. Okay, so here's what you gotta do. Shoot the ground kind of in front of them, and then you'll do 90 damage. Because Pyro just ended up being more work, it makes sense that most people would just switch mains when they got good enough. But then, Jungle Inferno happened. Hailed to the masses as the update that would finally fix Pyro. It didn't. But it did make Pyro undoubtedly a lot better. Using the flamethrower is just a lot more effective now. Air Blast is way more versatile, and it finally has a higher DPS than the shotgun. I feel like it might be hard to picture how unpopular Pyro used to be, but I was there. I started playing TF2 just after Jungle Inferno. And if you look at the YouTubers from that time, there's like no Pyro mains. There's barely any Pyro secondaries. Pyro Joe barely played Pyro. Pyro Joe! Now it feels like we have way more people who play Pyro. Pyro after Jungle Inferno is not perfect, but I think he's good enough. Good enough that he doesn't just feel like a worse option than other classes. And now, overall in TF2, he's the 4th most popular class, with a staggering drop-off between him and Demo. And I think that's the reason he's a lot less hated now. Don't get me wrong, every once in a while you will find an old head who still hates Pyro. But now you'll see a bunch of people defending Pyro in the comments of whatever posts they made. That really used to not be the case. But at the end of the day, skill invalidation has always been a grass is always greener type deal. But if people actually know the color of your grass, well then you don't get hated as much. Like sure, an amoeba can use the flamethrower, but a fish could use the rocket launcher. And you have to be at least a monkey to air blast well. By the way, this video is still about Sniper. But so, what happened? Why this shift from Pyro hate to Sniper hate? You see, I have a theory about this video game. You see, TF2 isn't like your other average first-person shooters. Think back to what I said earlier in this video. Aim truly is king. And if you look at the most hated weapons in first-person shooters, shotguns, SMGs, flamethrowers, rocket launchers. These weapons, and weapons like them, are all pillars of Team Fortress 2. It says a lot about the game's design principles that the default secondary weapon isn't a pistol, it's a shotgun. If you don't like weapons like the shotgun or rocket launcher, you're going to hate this game. Team Fortress 2 used to be the class-based shooter. I just need to interrupt this video real quick, because you see I looked up class-based shooters on Google, you know, for like images and videos and whatnot, for like references and stuff. Anyways, the first result is a Wikipedia article labeled Hero Shooter. But this article just goes to prove my point, because Team Fortress 1 is mentioned in the first paragraph, and Team Fortress 2 is mentioned in the second. It was the option to play if you liked class-based shooters. Now, to be fair, this Wikipedia article is genuinely probably the worst Wikipedia article I have ever seen. It is only about 6 paragraphs and doesn't mention Garden Warfare at all, which might seem a little silly to you that I'm complaining about that, but considering Garden Warfare is the first class-based shooter to have character-specific abilities and it came out a full year before Overwatch was even announced, it's pretty ridiculous that it's not even mentioned in this article. But my original point before I got completely sidetracked is this. If you want to play a different class-based shooter, you can. They exist. So the only reason you'd keep playing TF2 is if you really enjoy the design principles of the game. It hasn't been updated in so long, it's not the new hot thing on the block, so the only reason you'd play it is because you genuinely enjoy it. And that's why, despite how annoying the TF2 community can be at times...
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man? Get your ass on, boy. You get your goddamn ugly ass on.
The one thing we do genuinely have over games like Overwatch is we actually like our game. And I think really that gets to the core of why Sniper is now the most hated class in Team Fortress 2. Everyone left playing the game genuinely enjoys TF2's game design, and Sniper is the least TF2 class. Simply put, Sniper breaks more game design principles than any other class. Sniper has the longest range of any class in the game.
No shit.
Now, of course, this is fairly obvious, and it'd be kinda stupid if it wasn't true. But the issue with Sniper in Team Fortress 2 isn't that he has the best range, it's the absolute chasm between him and second place. In just about every FPS, the Sniper is the best long-range weapon. Duh. But most games will also have some sort of assault rifle, or revolver, you know, one that's good, to help bridge the gap. Yeah, sure, these weapons are definitely not as effective as a sniper rifle, but they can at least challenge one. TF2 does not have these types of weapons. There are weapons that only work in close range, weapons that are only effective in close range, weapons that can be used at medium range but really want you to use them in close range, weapons that work just fine in close or medium range, absolutely literally nothing that works well in medium to long range, and then finally we have the sniper rifle. Every other gun in the game is designed for close range, medium to close range, and very rarely medium range, which heavily exacerbates the issues that lead to the next point. Every class in the game has a counter. Pyro is weak to heavy, Scout is weak to engineer, Demo is weak to scout, but Sniper has no counter. He is weak to every class in close range and strong to every class in long range. Now, Spy is supposed to counter Sniper, but thanks to the added Spy Invalidator 9000, that just isn't true. If a Sniper is playing behind the team like, snipers do, the only class that can actually challenge him without having to go through sentries and the entire enemy team is another sniper. This makes attempting to counterpick a good sniper basically impossible because it's almost guaranteed that they're a sniper main and you're not. And this is why I think Sniper is the easiest class to pub stomp with. You see, if you start doing too good with any other class, people will counterpick you and they'll focus fire you. This is good because it leads to a sort of self-balancing effect. Nobody really likes rolls. But Sniper cannot be counterpicked, and if he's playing behind his team, he cannot be focus fired. This leads to the oppressive feeling that you can't do anything. In a similar vein to class counters, every class has an exploitable weakness. Scout is weak in tight areas where he can't successfully dodge well. Soldier is weak on low ground where he gets denied splash rockets. And Heavy can just kind of be avoided. Sniper is the best long-range class, and he has no bad matchups at long range. So, of course, to balance this, Sniper basically can't win any fights up close. Right? Well, a quickscope headshot that can be done at any range and takes 0.2 seconds does 150 damage, which instantly kills 5 of the 9 classes. And if you quick switch from your sniper rifle to your SMG, you can kill every remaining class that isn't heavy in just under 1 second.
The sniper rifle was another tricky design problem. To meet players' expectations, a sniper rifle has to be able to kill an opponent with a single shot to the head. On the flip side, we need to ensure it cannot be snap-fired from the hip with the same effect.
So that was a fucking lie.
Now, to be clear, getting a quickscope headshot is really difficult. Very few people can do it consistently, especially at very close range. But I don't think something being difficult is a valid reason to completely invalidate a class weakness. The way I've always seen it is if 2 players play equally well at a decently high level, then the class who has the advantage state or is a class counter should always win. But that's simply just not true. If you're playing Scout, you can play 100% perfectly, hit 100% of your shots, and only engage a sniper in purely point-blank close range, and you can still lose to a quickscope headshot. It is utterly criminal how effective this is as Sniper. Take for an example the class that is probably the exact opposite of Sniper, Pyro. Pyro is only effective in close range and is bad at long range. And that is always true. It doesn't matter how good you are at the video game, you are never going to effectively do damage at long range with Pyro, no matter how skillful you are.
Wait a minute. That's exactly what they do.
I know it seems like air blasting projectiles might contradict this statement, but it doesn't. Air blasting projectiles gives you some long-range lethality as Pyro, but that's okay, because in order to air blast a projectile that was fired at long range, your opponent needs to make a mistake. You weren't granted that lethality at long range by your skill alone as Pyro. Your opponent needed to make a mistake. But again, you can play perfectly against a quickscope headshotting sniper and still lose at close range, and that's ridiculous. This is going to be a pretty short section, but it's also kind of important. You see, Spy and Sniper have the exact same role on the team, with one very notable large problem.
Anything Spy can do, Sniper does better. Sniper does everything better than Spy.
No, he can't.
Yes, he can.
No, he can't.
Yes, he can.
No, he can't.
Yes, he can. Yes, he can.
It's a well-known problem that Sniper is just kind of better than Spy, and I think that comes down to one major thing. Spy is a stealth-based pick class. Sniper is a long-range pick class, and also a stealth-based pick class. If you're far enough away, people can't see you, because fundamentally, being invisible is not that much different than being 4 pixels on the screen. And while Spy can attack you while he's invisible, Sniper certainly can attack you while he's 4 pixels tall. And the worst part of this is that it's not even supposed to be a major strength of Sniper. They specifically gave him a laser sight so he wouldn't be functionally invisible. Unfortunately though, circumventing the laser sight is one of the easiest things imaginable. Now granted, this has a lot more to do with Spy being really bad than Sniper being really good, but I still think being impossible to pinpoint is too strong of a strength for Sniper, because fundamentally, being outside their sightline is the only way most classes can successfully combat a Sniper. So being able to do that should at least be reasonable. Team Fortress 2 might not have as many classes as other class-based shooters like Overwatch, but that's okay because the classes we do have are insanely customizable. We have subclasses, hybrid subclasses, weapons to fit any playstyle, no matter how stupid. And even if you don't change your weapons, just changing where you're playing on the team will drastically change your playstyle. A flanking Pyro will have a completely different experience than a Pyro defending the pocket. You really can play however you want with whatever class you'd like. Unless that class is Sniper, of course. Sniper really only has one playstyle. Most of the unlockable sniper rifles will only really augment a few things: non-headshot damage and charging mechanics. And considering the game plan for a very skilled sniper is to barely charge the gun at all and only go for headshots, this doesn't actually change that much. And all of his secondaries that aren't just a worse version of the SMG are all passives or throwables, which actually make you play more stagnantly by only using your primary. And furthermore, Sniper is not a class you can play out of position. Trying to play flank sniper or an offensively pushing sniper is just going to get you killed. And because you only play in a few positions, and because you only use one weapon, and because you play behind your team, not with your team, overwhelmingly, aim skill is the only skill you need as a sniper player. This is why bots with the dumbest AI imaginable can still dominate as sniper. In the world we live in, where first-person shooters are largely dominated by Call of Battlefield of Honor type games, Team Fortress 2 stands out as a game that feels uniquely fast. This isn't actually because of movement speed, because characters in Call of Duty can run faster than most characters in TF2. But that's just it, they can run faster. Most modern games will essentially segregate movement and shooting by using aim down sights and sprint mechanics. This makes it so that you are either, for the most part, firing at people running in a straight line or standing still. And additionally, you don't have to account for your own movement while you're aiming. It sounds stupid, but moving while shooting is one of the biggest things that differentiates TF2 from modern video games. This creates a back and forth where you're not only trying to fire at your opponent, but you're also trying to dodge their attacks. And I don't think I can show you why this is true any better than Penguify did in his video. so I'm gonna steal a small clip of it.
To illustrate this, here are two scout players. If you stuck both of these players in an aim trainer, they'd probably get fairly similar scores. But one person is a CS player who's actually quite good at B-hopping but hasn't spent that much time with TF2 yet. And the other is a TF2 veteran who's had world records in surf, B-hop and rocket jumping, played multiple seasons at the highest level, and is a master of deceptive movement. See if you can identify who is who. To the untrained eye, it might look like I'm just whiffing all my rockets and dying, but each movement the second scout player makes is calculated. From thousands of hours of playing, their movement is designed to bait me to fire a rocket somewhere and then move to safety.
Okay class, now that we know how important moving while shooting is to the identity of TF2, can we think of a class that doesn't move and shoot at the same time? So while Sniper's movement speed might functionally be average, he ends up being a much slower class due to the fact he can't move and shoot at the same time. And furthermore, Sniper also has the ability to slow the rest of the game down. Sniper's extremely powerful burst damage but extremely terrible movement makes it so he's really terrible at taking ground but really good at holding ground. This leads to extremely stalematy games, and it's one of the reasons why Sniper is oftentimes hated in sixes. It oftentimes feels like Sniper is playing a completely different game than the rest of the players. Because Sniper's best counter is himself, it puts him in the awkward position of having to focus on other snipers in the match before anyone else. So let me ask you this. If your team has 3 snipers and the enemy team has 3 snipers, which let's be real is not that uncommon of a scenario, all the snipers in the match will basically only be targeting each other the entire time. And this leads to what I like to call the sniper minigame effect, where because snipers are only focused on shooting other snipers, they're not actually contributing to whether their team wins or loses. They just play their point-and-click adventure game until the round ends. This is one of the reasons why in Shonik's video where they straight up just remove Sniper, it feels like almost nothing changes. And I can't think of a single class where that would also be true for them. In conclusion, I think that Sniper mains are kind of weird. Not that they're bad people or anything, they're just kind of weird. I mean, you're playing a game that's known for its movement, team play, and close quarters focus. As the class, that is quintessentially the opposite of all of those mechanics. I'd understand if you played him sometimes, or if you just started playing the game and Sniper was easy for you to learn. But if TF2 is your favorite game, and you main Sniper, that's strange, isn't it? Other games have snipers, and they're better, they're more rewarding, they're easier. Why are you playing this one? Sniper is the black sheep of Team Fortress 2. He's the one that doesn't fit in. And that's why he's hated. He is the anti-TF2 class. He is the black sheep. And much like the black sheep, I have been pulling the wool over your eyes this entire time. The concept that Sniper is the most fundamentally different class in TF2 is an idea I have heard many times over. And frankly, it's just not true. While all the problems I listed earlier in the video are definitely true, they are not isolating Sniper from the rest of the cast. I'll re-go over the examples I said earlier, but this time adding the additional context of classes that also break those rules. Yes, Sniper does have the best range in the game, but arguing that this is even remotely the biggest break in game design when you have classes that can disguise as other classes and classes that set up turrets is ridiculous. Every class in the game has the thing they do that no other class can compete with them on. Sniper's is range. It is very true that Sniper has no hard counters. But you know who else doesn't have any hard counters? The most popular class in the game. And despite what people tell you, Sniper does have a lot of reasonable counterplay. Using weapons like the Vaccinator or the Enforcer, yes, this is the one scenario where it's good, can actually make playing Sniper really frustrating. Okay, this one is a pretty big problem actually. But notably, Sniper again is not the only class that can do this. Demo Man is a class designed to be really weak in super close range. Soldier and Scout are classes designed to be really good in close range. But as Demo, if you manage to hit all your shots in close range, you can manage to kill them before they kill you. I have heard often the sentiment that Sniper is a one-trick pony. I would however argue that weapons like the Huntsman and Sydney Sleeper provide more variety than some entire classes get. Seriously, look me in the eye and tell me what the alternate Scout playstyle is that isn't just using a really bad weapon and memeing. Do I have to say it? Do I really have to say it? But even moving past Heavy, this might be a slightly longer section, but it has always annoyed me how people try to boil down TF2 into a speed game. While 3 of the 9 classes in the game heavily utilize movement mechanics as a core aspect of their toolkit, the others don't. What happened here is what always happens when it comes to TF2 discourse. Someone talks about the TF2 competitive scene, they make a statement that is true for competitive, and then a bunch of viewers who watched the video decided it also applied to the rest of the game. Throw in just a pinch of misunderstanding and presto. This is how we got from such hits as Scout is the best 1v1 class to Scout is the best 1v1 class. That means no matter what situation he's in, no matter what disadvantage state he's in, he should be able to always beat the other class in a 1v1. You see, competitive TF2 is definitely very movement-centric. The casual TF2 is only movement-centric for some of the classes. There is no word more misused in the TF2 community than stalemate. Now, I love Uncle Dane, but this is largely his fault for saying things like this.
So the first thing I want to talk about, stalemates.
Stalemate.
Seems like the major frustration aimed at certain maps usually boils down to the phrase, it's too stalematey. Typically, these maps have extremely difficult to push choke points, limited flank options, perfect sentry spots, oppressive sniper sightlines, or easily spammable areas that just prevent teams from maintaining a foothold long enough to coordinate an offensive maneuver.
Uncle Dane, I love you, I really do, but none of these maps have stalemates. You see, these are all attack, defend, or payload maps. The only 2 game modes that actually have stalemates are capture the flag and control points. What so many people describe as a stalemate in this game is just red winning. The teams not being able to move forward is not a flaw with the game, it's literally just the goal of one of the teams. I've heard it argued that Sniper's not really playing TF2, but rather a sort of sniping minigame inside of TF2. But I would argue this sort of game within a game idea applies way more to classes like Medic, Spy, and Engineer. For me, one of the reasons why Spy and Engineer are 2 of my favorite classes in the entire game is that they play so uniquely compared to any other class that it does honestly feel like you're just playing a completely different game. Now you might be asking, if Sniper isn't the most different TF2 class, then who is? Well, in order to find out, you have to do what I call the 8 class test. If 8 of the 9 classes were playable on release, but the 9th was added 10 years later as a DLC character, which class would make people the most angry? And it's really hard to tell what the answer for this is, but it's definitely not Sniper. The answer is probably Spy, Engineer, or Medic. Spy changes the way you interact with literally every teammate, Engineer would cause a massive dramatic shift to the pacing of the game, and Medic would change the balance of literally every other class. But we don't think of these classes being against the core of TF2 simply by how much they change the game from their presence alone. It seems like every TF2 YouTuber tries to define the lightning in the bottle that was caught by TF2, and they've come up with many different answers. Mobility, high burst damage, close range, but these always have massive glaring outliers. And if you ask me, that's by design. There's a reason for that. If you ask me, the real thing that separates TF2 from the rest of the crop is this: unwavering commitment to class specification. This is the reason that despite Overwatch having 2 billion characters, none of them feel nearly as unique as Spy and Engineer feel in Team Fortress 2. TF2 goes the full mile when designing a class. The slow tank that hits hard is extremely tanky, extremely slow, and hits ridiculously hard. The healing character doesn't just heal, he overheals. The builder class doesn't just build a turret and play like a normal class. No, he builds a turret, upgrades it, and has 2 additional other support buildings. The speed-based class doesn't have an occasional burst of speed. No, they are constantly fast always. The Trapper character does not have 1 or 2 planted explosives. He has 8. This is what keeps TF2 feeling so fresh. Because if you ever get bored, you can just play a different class and it feels like you're playing a different game. While in a lot of other games, it just feels like you're doing the same task, just better or worse. This is why I don't think Sniper being extremely different from the other TF2 classes makes him a bad TF2 class, because being extremely different is what TF2 classes are about. The idea that Sniper is somehow an anti-TF2 class has always been just a scapegoat. There's really only ever been 2 real reasons people hate Sniper, and they've just intertwined over the years. And the first reason goes back to good old-fashioned skill invalidation. While Sniper being really different from other TF2 classes doesn't make him anti-TF2, it does make him ripe for skill invalidation. Because of TF2's focus on spray and pray and AoE effect weapons, the community just straight up doesn't care as much about aim as most other shooter communities. So a character like Sniper, who on the surface looks like he relies solely on aim and literally nothing else, can be fairly easily hated, especially when compounded by the second reason people hate Sniper. While we all like to think that we're able to tell the difference between Sniper, the playable character, and Sniper, the exploitable tool used by hackers, the truth is, we can't really that well. Like, sure, all the problems with Sniper I've stated earlier in the video definitely existed before the bot crisis, but they were nowhere near the ubiquity they are today. The steep rise in Sniper hate correlated almost directly with the bot crisis. Well, that and the map Whatville, obviously. And all this hate makes a lot of sense. For a while, bots were completely shutting down like almost every server you went to. And while bots have existed for other classes, they have been nowhere near as bad as Sniper. And a lot of that is, again, due to the way Sniper was designed. It is considerably easier to make a bot that just has to aim when compared to a bot that needs to have some sort of aim sense to work. There was a sense that if Sniper didn't exist, this bot crisis wouldn't be a crisis, it would just be a mild inconvenience. And while I never really hated Sniper, if I had to choose between keeping Sniper and saving TF2, well, that's not a very hard decision to make for me. Since Sniper bots were basically ending TF2 for a while, the community were looking for any reason to hate Sniper in general. And while you could logically say you don't hate Sniper, you hate bots, it's unfortunately standard human behavior to hate things just because of a loose connection to another thing you hate. This is why you'll get things like anti-woke politicians hating tofu or avocados for no other reason than they're vaguely things that left-leaning people eat. And if you're thinking, wow, I can't believe this got political at the 12th hour, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Why are these foods political? And the answer is, they're working backwards. People hate Sniper, the tool used by hackers, so they'll find any reason to hate Sniper, the playable character. Other than Sniper being an anti-TF2 class, the only other reason really given for why people hate Sniper is that he's unfun to play against. And I just think this is a kind of biased conversation to have, because when you think about the times you play against Sniper, you only really think about the times you die. Sniper is honestly so easy to kill at close range, you don't even really think about it. And the truth of the matter is this, every class is annoying if you only think about the times they killed you. You don't even consider how often they improve your gameplay experience by being essentially free kills. And while you might think removing one annoying class would make the game better, that's a very slippery slope to go down, because if you remove every class you think is annoying, likely there's gonna be like 1 or 2 classes left in the game. Now that I've been waffling for quite a while defending Sniper, it might surprise you that I do actually support several changes to make Sniper more fair to play against. Because again, the issues I laid out earlier are real, I just don't agree with the framing that this makes him the least TF2 class. Sniper the class is overpowered. While in 6's the official TF2 competitive game mode, he might not be nearly the best class, that cannot be said for Highlander, the competitive game mode that much more closely mirrors casual TF2. In this game mode, he is arguably the second best class behind Medic, who's kind of just the best by default by being the only class who can heal, and he doesn't really count. Because of this, I do think some nerfs are in order. Usually, I think the best way to nerf a class is to give it a bunch of small nerfs that compound to make the class overall worse, but also not changing the core of the class. This is the approach the TF team took with Demoman, who is the most nerfed class in the game. Core character traits like health, fire rate, and base damage have not been changed at all. Rather, they've made smaller, less notable changes to damage ramp up and blast radius. Also, stickies used to be impossible to remove. I don't know why that was ever a thing in the game, but it was. One YouTuber who I've covered quite a bit in the past, FishStickOnAStick, has made a lot of good balancing decisions for Sniper. He made Sniper 2, which I think gives him a lot of credibility. The first change is simple. The reserve ammo was cut to 16, which is a good nerf, but also not that interesting. The second nerf is the most major nerf. The sniper rifle now has a magazine size. You can only fire 4 bullets before having to commit to a lengthy reload. This promotes a more sniper-like way of playing, where you're not just firing willy-nilly, you're purposely taking calculated shots. Counting your shots also becomes an effective counterplay for the enemy team. The third and final change made to Sniper is the most obvious. If you asked an uncontacted Amazonian tribe what one nerf Sniper from Team Fortress 2 should receive, every member would give the same answer. Give the idiot tracer rounds. Sniper's ability to be functionally anywhere has always been one of his greatest strengths. Adding tracer rounds would drastically cut down on the guesswork required to fight against a sniper. It would also fix a lot of the issues that come from his character overlap with Spy. While we may be out of fish on a stick changes, there is one more change I would personally like to see to Sniper. In my personal opinion, my biggest issue with Sniper more than anything is his ability to invalidate his own weaknesses, i.e. killing you at close range faster than you can kill him. Considering that the TF2 team doesn't even think he should be able to do this.
On the flip side, we need to ensure it cannot be snap-fired from the hip with the same effect.
I can't think of a single balancing reason for why this shouldn't already be in the game. Now the easiest way to fix this issue would be to add reverse damage falloff, i.e. the sniper rifle does less damage at super close range. This solution is stupid though. Generally, I think you should avoid doing what I like to call number fuckery, and this is a really good example of number fuckery. Number fuckery can easily be described as when you change specific damage numbers in really specific circumstances. Good example, Overwatch tanks taking less headshot damage than any other category. You would never know that was true unless you heard it from an outside source. What I believe to be the better solution is to add scope drop. Scope drop is a mechanic in many games where if you take enough damage, you will unscope out of your sniper rifle automatically. I think around 60 damage over the course of 3 seconds is a pretty good number. This would make it so Sniper could still quickscope headshot you from close range, but only when you make a mistake, because that's how classes should be balanced if they're in a disadvantageous spot. Remember, assuming equal skill, every class should be able to beat Sniper in close range. And speaking of, this would also allow for Sniper's first actual class counterpick. With this change, Spy could finally counter one of the classes he's designed to counter. In conclusion, I hope you learned something from this video. If you don't like my specific changes I'd like to see to Sniper, that's fine. I don't care that much. I know I learned something. I learned that I vastly underestimated how long this video is going to be. You better subscribe. This video is 47 minutes long. You are required to subscribe. I put in enough effort that YouTube is now forcing you to subscribe. Don't look into that. Subscribe right now.